Good evening. I hereby call to order the December 13th meeting of the Committee of the Whole. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Ballestrea?
Present.
Mr. Dijon?
Here.
Mr. Mano?
Here.
Mr. Monaco?
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta? Here. Mrs. Teresi?
Here. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The purpose of the meeting this evening is to discuss the overall trail plan for the city of Mayfield Heights, the proposed contract for the design plan and construction for services for Gates Mills Boulevard. Tonight we have Sean Ward, our Director of Recreation, and Dan Gerson here with us to give a presentation. I will turn the meeting over to Sean Ward.
Thanks. Obviously, we have a quaint meeting today, right? The first time in a long time we have a full house here. So at the last council meeting, I regret that I was not able to be here, so there was a lot of questions that needed to be answered. I sent you a FAQ sheet trying to outline a lot of that information, and then I followed up with a packet last night. And I just want to go over that and make sure everyone is on the same page and doesn't have any questions, so we all know what we're voting on. So we sent a letter home to all the residents on Gates Mills Boulevard. It went on December 2nd, and it outlined that we're having this meeting tonight and what was in the trail, and that they could find more information on the website. It also included the new conceptual plan that does not have parking, does not have trail amenities, and has a loop at both ends.
Hey, Sean, can you pull that closer to you, that mic?
At the meeting on the 18th of November, the mayor, in an attempt to make this plan more palatable to those that were somewhat opposed, he took out parking, he took out the trail amenities, signage, all those things. I'm here to reiterate that will not be going in. There was some confusion on grants and what was part of this grant and what was part of the second grant. I'm going to just talk about what is going in, and that is a proposed trail, 10 feet wide, asphalt trail, 3/4 of a mile long, landscaping, stormwater improvements, and crosswalks. There's no parking, there's no signage, there's no pet waste, there's no benches. All the rest of that big stuff was never on the table. The bathrooms, the lighting, the playgrounds, all that stuff was dead on arrival at the last, about a year ago when we came and proposed it, and it was very clear that no one wanted that. So just to avoid any confusion, that was off the table from the get-go. So, but the mayor wanted to make this more palatable, so he took that other stuff out. I know at the last meeting, Nino had suggested that we poll Gates Mills Boulevard residents, and it was a little bit of a back and forth on what we would end up doing. So we went out and we did our best to poll people. We went around and when we talked to people, if you were for this, we asked you to write me an email so that we would know it's obviously got their name on it and it's a time that it was sent. You all have those emails. I believe there's 25 emails in there to the affirmative. There's actually a total of 31 people that are in favor of this. I'm still waiting, sometimes you ask for an email and someone says they'll do it and they procrastinate or whatever, so. But in that email, by and large, people said they want a trail and they want a simple trail. They don't want, and I said, spell out what you want. And so if you go through all those emails, you'll see, some say I want a bench, but most of them say, keep it simple. I don't know if Tom is here, but one of the Gates Mills Boulevard residents said, sometimes it's hard to keep it simple, but you gotta try to keep it simple. And that's kind of what we heard from those people that responded in the affirmative. For those of you that are the negative, I think I know most of you, and so I didn't reach out to you, so, because I know that you're in the negative, so it's not a point that we need to argue, so. I have there was a question about safety in the Gates Mills Boulevard area. And so I reached out to the police department and asked them if they would give me some feedback on what we were talking about. And so I have a brief statement from them. You all have there. The Mayfield Heights Police Department is aware of the proposed walking trails on Gates Mills Boulevard between Somme Center Road and Cedar Road. We are also aware of the safety concerns that have been made regarding the proposed walking trail. The police department is dedicated to public safety of all residents who reside in the area of Gates Mills Boulevard, as well as pedestrians who would utilize the proposed trail. If walking trails are implemented on Gates Mills Boulevard, the police department will continue to actively patrol the area, and members of our bicycle unit and auxiliary unit will patrol the trail during summer months. We conducted a review of accident data from Gates Mills Boulevard. In 2021, there were 4 motor vehicle accidents reported on Gates Mills Boulevard. Speed was not a contributing factor in any of these accidents. In addition, none involved pedestrians or bicycles. Only one of the 4 accidents involved an injury. This accident was caused when someone backed out of a driveway and struck another vehicle traveling on Gates Mills Boulevard. The police department also conducted a survey with several other Northeast Ohio police departments, including some cities with substantially higher populations of residents than Mayfield Heights, including Menor and Cleveland Heights. Police officers and other staff in the cities contacted were questioned about safety of their walking trails and the types of incidents that occur on trails. None of the agencies contacted believe that walking trails contributed to additional crime or could report any specific crimes due to the trails. One agency reported that juveniles occasionally loitered on the trail. However, that specific trail was adjacent to a school. Mayfield Village has a walking trail along Somme Center Road, north of Wilson Mills. When asked about accidents involving pedestrians utilizing the trail next to the busy roadway, the police officer contacted could not recall any motor vehicle accidents on the trail. Finally, although the police department respects the opinions of all residents and their concerns regarding the proposed trail, there are no indicators that a trail on Gates Mills Boulevard will cause any additional increase in crime. Well, that was from our police department. Obviously, you've all, I'm sure, seen the videos from the surrounding communities. One of the things that Mayor Rinker said, same with Mayor Mulcahy in Orange Village, they said, to quote Mayor Rinker, "We have all the positives and none of the negatives." He talked about a resident on Highland Road who was dead set against the trail and now thanked him after the fact. Same with Mayor Mulcahy in Orange Village. She had an elderly resident that was extremely against it, and she is now, was in a video speaking out, proposing the trail. I reached out to the rec directors in Mayfield, or in Cleveland Heights and Shaker Heights. Cleveland Heights' response to me was, "All positives, my friend. I have not gotten one criminal complaint in the 6 years I have been the director about our trails. They are a wonderful feature enjoyed by many people. And the director in Shaker Heights said, "We do have trails, and I have not heard any complaints with regard to litter other than dog waste, crime, or drugs." So that's from 2 rec directors. Another point that was made that people were concerned about was the rapid flashing beacons. And listen, I don't want flashing beacons going on all night either. And that's not what we're proposing. This is a beacon, and I think you have a photo of that. And so if you're walking down the street to, let's say, the edge of Longwood, and you get there and you hit the button, and the button flashes for 30 to 45 seconds, and you cross the street, and then the flashing lights go dead. And so that's what it would be. It wouldn't be something that's flashing 24 hours. Let's see. Someone asked about crossing at the circle. First off, as you all know, there'll be intersection improvements at the circle as one of the intersection improvements we'll be making. So there'll be a cross from SOM to Gates Mills Boulevard, and then from Gates Mills Boulevard towards Woodhawk and around. So all those will be improved. But there is not going to be a rapid flashing beacon at that circle. So you would do what your parents taught you, right? You stop and look, and then proceed as it becomes available. So there's no stopping of cars on the circle. There was a comment about stormwater, and this will produce mosquitoes and attract wildlife. So first off, I've been over by the Boulevard now very often over the last month or two, and boy, there's a lot of water up on that, standing water up on that median. So it doesn't drain off fast, so if there's mosquitoes, I'm sure they're doing a good job of making hatching and prolonging their family trees. But Elizabeth Heiser from the Euclid Creek Watershed, she's got an email in there, and she talks about this. This is what they do, big government agency that does this, from Cuyahoga Soil, Water, and Conservation District. And she says that basically the bioswales are to get the water to the retention ponds, and the retention ponds are supposed to let the water infiltrate into the ground over the course of 48 hours. I think she said it takes a lot longer for mosquitoes to hatch and do what they need to do. So again, a big government agency, they wouldn't be doing this if there was an issue with mosquitoes. Onto wildlife, with the bioswales, you can plant grasses or other plants that aren't attractive to deer. So if that's an issue, we can certainly look into that, and she would be happy to help us. Penalty for not accepting grants. So this is a grant from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. They have multiple grants. This is the Clean Ohio's Trails Fund. So the trails is about trails. You're building a trail. They'll allow you to do some amenities, but it's really about the trails. There's also a Nature Works grant that we've applied for and received for Oakville Park improvements, for our tennis court improvements, and there's also a land and water conservation grant that they put out, $500,000. This grant we're looking to apply for in next year to put a new playground in front of the new pool and community center. So there's other grants that ODNR does that we would be applying for. If we don't accept this grant, the facts are that they're just not going to look favorably on us ever applying in the future. It is what it is. We're basically holding on to $500,000 that a whole bunch of other people applied for and didn't get, and then we're returning it. So it's not something that they're going to want to entertain in the future. It's just a fact. Finally, someone might ask, why are we pushing this so fast? So, going back to the beginning where we started, we did the connectivity study in 2018 and 2019. We did some surveys, and they all pointed positive 2020 survey. Okay, so the 2020 survey, after 2019, we had 875, and in 2020, we had 894. Very important, somewhat important came up 73% of the time on the survey in 2020. 73% of people said it's very important or somewhat important. So those three things kind of guided us to say, you know what, people want trails. And so we want to proceed with trails. I know it was asked, well, this is a link to nowhere. I would agree that we don't know what Pepper Pike is doing yet, but please know that they applied for a grant, and you know they have not heard yet what they're getting. But they applied for a grant. But it's not just going that way. It's going towards our new pool and community center. Elaine Price from county planning called me and told me that there's double the amount of money for trails this year because of the restoration funds, American Restoration Plan funds. There's double the amount of money, and encouraged me to reach out to the state budget to see if we can get some funding. And I said, well, with our finances with the pool and community center being high because of inflation and whatnot, that we probably wouldn't be interested in that because we don't want to match or have to deal with engineering costs after talking with the mayor and Karen about that. She responded and said, this is 100%, this will cover 100% of the funds. So it's not like a grant that you got to pay for engineering, you got to pay a match. This is money. This is 100% funded. So with that, and knowing that we're putting $20 million into a pool and community center and that whole complex, this is a good time to leverage that money to see if we can get state monies to help us connect down Marsal or down Som and across Marsal, so that someone walking from Gates Mills Boulevard or riding their bike can ride their bike to our new park, our new pool, our new community center. So just trying to take advantage of leverage, the money that we have in the game, to see if we can get some money back. Just to reiterate, I gave you a tally sheet on all the people on Gates Mills Boulevard, name adjust, and what their response was. If they were in green, they were positive. If they were in red, they were against. There's a few that are still deciding or haven't found any home. Of the 57 homes, 31 are in favor. 16 are against, and 5 are still thinking about it, and there's 4 that no one seem to be home. One resident, unfortunately, is deceased. So that's what I have. I'd like to open it up to any questions.
Excuse me, does any member of council have a question? Mr. Bellistrea.
Sean, the money that we could get subsequently from the government, could that be used to supplement the monies that we have to outlay for this trail? Or would it be going forward? Going forward. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. Ward? Mr. Monaco?
Thank you. I received the proposal that was applied by the city to the ODNR. Actually, it's the application that was made to the ODNR. And it's quite lengthy, it's probably about 100 pages. Thank you for sending it over. I really appreciate that. And going through that, I found some notes that I just wrote down that I'd like to share with everybody here. The first one says, the trail will be used for recreation by residents along Gates Mills Boulevard who currently do not have sidewalk. Now that appears to be changed. Then there's a total of 20 parking spaces that will be added, and this would be for out-of-towners or other people using that. And I know that it's off the table at this point. So if it's off the table and the application is just for residents of Gates Mills, is that still the case? That's question number one. Second, this project to the west will link on street cycle route in Pepper Pike. So from the very beginning, seems like the city of Mayfield Heights knew that a trail is not going to happen in Pepper Pike, because you specifically stated here that it would be connected to the street cycle trail, not to the trail in the boulevard in Gates Mills. The construction of the Gates Mills Boulevard Connector Trail will provide, in essence, a brand-new park for the city of Mayfield Heights. You didn't apply for a trail, you applied for a park to be installed on Mayfield Heights Boulevard. Grantees cannot deviate from the scope of the original project. But that's exactly what you're doing. You're deviating for this now. Are you still getting the grants? And again, I'm not against the trail here. I love trails. I'm a runner. I will be the first one to use it. But it has to be presented properly, has to be drawn properly, and you have to have the input of the residents. Let me continue. City anticipate high dosage along this trail of 241 people per day during peak season. Can you imagine 241 people in the boulevard during the day?
Is that single file? Or?
Maybe, I don't know. This trail will be an important connector to Pepper Pike and Gates Mills Village. Tell me how you're going to connect this to Gates Mills, and Gates Mills is not going to do theirs. You can fly over, or I don't know. Then Pepper Pike and Gates Mills, okay, then here's the fees. The fees that are proposed for this that the city would have to pay would be $117,176 that comes from Northeast Ohio Sewer District. $98,663 would be from the city cash. $84,140 would be in-kind funds, which city also would be providing. So the city will contribute $299,979 to this project, if my calculations are correct. Also on your applications is trash receptacles will be checked daily by service department. Now, by a conversation with you, it's going to be an employee from the recreation department. Which one is it? Gates Mills.
Say that again. I'm sorry, I missed that. It was
Trash receptacles will be checked daily by service department.
okay.
Now I understand that the employee is from the recreation department. Is that changed?
No, I made a statement that if there's a problem with trash, first
Okay.
off, trash, there's no garbage.
Okay.
We've taken that out of the plan.
Well, okay.
So I guess that's a dead issue. But all I'm saying is my commitment is if for some reason the service department wasn't able to handle that, the recreation department would make sure that we would help
Okay.
them and take care of that. That's all I'm saying there.
Then attached to this application, there is a letter from the Gates Mills and Pepper Pike mayor. And this letter is addressed to Mr. Hammond at the DNR supporting the trail in Mayfield Heights. It's kind of funny. They don't want it in Gates Mills and Pepper Pike, but they'd be glad to use one in Mayfield Heights. Then the city engineer fees that were applied for, the drawing, and I don't know what about house for this project, is $42,222 to be paid by ODNR and $19,621 to be paid by the city. So the total of that would be $64,844 for engineering fee. Before us tonight, there is a proposal for the city engineering fees for the drawing and for the managing of this project of not more than $150,000. How did we get from $64,844 to $150,000 already? That's all I have for now.
That's it?
That's it.
All right, thanks, Nino. All right, so I'm going to try to answer some of your questions, and I'll have Dan answer the last one. So your first one, I'm trying to take quick notes here. So Pepper Pike knew about your comment. Your first, what was I think the first?
The first one is the trail will be used for recreation by residents along Gates Mills Boulevard who currently do not have sidewalk.
Okay.
That's your statement on the application.
Yes, so this application was filled out, and it was worked out in 2019, and it was applied for in the, I think it was February of 2020. So that was when this was going in. And again, that's what it was. That was before we pulled all that stuff out. So recreation includes walking your dog. Recreation includes walking, running, enjoying nature. So that's what recreation is. I don't know if you, I mean, I guess you can split hairs if a green space is considered a park. I don't know. I mean, if you want me to tell you, I can tell you again, we're not planning on putting bathrooms in there. We're not planning on putting playgrounds in there. We're not planning on putting pavilions in there. We're not planning on putting lighting in there. The mayor has said, and I have followed it up, we're not planning, and the residents who are for this said they want a simple trail. They don't want to see a trail with garbage cans. They don't want to see a trail with benches, with parking. So I've talked to a lot of people in the last.
I understand that. I don't mean to interrupt you, but my thing is your application states this. If you submitted a revised application with all these changes to the ODNR, and as ODNR approved your new application, if tonight we vote to allow the city engineer to go ahead with this study, with this drawing and the study, and then you don't get the grant, because from what I read here, there's a possibility you may not get it.
No.
Then who's going to be paying for the engineering fees?
So I talked to the state, and I said, because I knew this question would come up, if we take out some things out of the trail or out of the budget, they said it will go, your cost will go down proportionately. But keep this in mind, this is a Clean Ohio's Trails Fund. So don't take out the trail or you're not getting anything.
Okay. Do you have anything in writing that states that you will get the funds with this revised drawing, revised proposal?
Yes, we will get the funds. I don't have anything in writing. I would be happy to get something in writing from.
I really like to see something in writing.
Okay, so I did have a phone conversation with Mr. Hammonds about this, and so that's what he relayed to me. And I think I put that in the FAQ sheet that I sent a couple weeks ago, a week and a half ago. I put that in there. You talked about grantees cannot deviate. Yes. So you know, we have to put the trail in. I will call him and tell him that what we're proposing, and have him give us an official email that I'll make sure I get out to all of you on that point. High dosage of 241
241 people per day during peak season.
per day during peak season. So that is a number that was calculated by AECom, the engineering firm that helped us with the grant. They came up with those numbers. 241, you know, you could split it in 8 or 10. I mean, I don't know where they got the number, but
That's your
if
number.
there's 241, hey, we got a trail that's very popular, right? I don't necessarily know that 241 divided by 8 spread out over 3/4 of a mile is anything but a good idea.
So this connector is an important connector to Pepper Pike and Gates Mills Village. How is this going to connect to Gates Mill Village? How are you going to get to Gates Mills from this trail?
So the connectivity study that we did was a long-term study. It's done over, it's something that you would think about over 15 or 20 years. But there are subsequent trails that we would look to put in that would get you over to connect up to the Gates Mills or the Mayfield Village Trail so that folks can ultimately get to the Cleveland Metro Parks on their bikes. That's a long 15, 20 year, I mean, you know, that's down the road. Gates Mills Village, the mayor, as you said, wrote a letter, and I think you said Pepper Pike mayor wrote a letter as well, and they wrote a letter because they didn't want it. Well, that's not the case because the mayor of Pepper Pike has applied for the same grant. He actually, I can quote him, I remember him saying, "I'll write a letter for you if you guys write a letter for me." That's what he said.
I worked in Pepper Pike for 11 years as a building commissioner, and they've been trying to put a trail on the Gates Mills Boulevard for 11 years. And to this day, they still haven't done it. So I think that they should do theirs first, and then we connect to theirs. You don't just build a bridge in the middle and then connect the two sides. Anyway, in
Let me finish.
conclusion-
Let me finish your.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
So, if we build this trail and Gates Mills doesn't build a trail, and Pepper Pike doesn't build a trail, if you see on your schematic, we have circles at both ends, so you can, if you're riding your bike and you just want to go back and forth, you can loop and keep going. So it's serpentining down the path. So it's very nice, it's very pleasant. But if you decide to go to the park, you could go around on our new intersection improvements, and then you could take Som. There is a sidewalk on Som. It's a 5-foot sidewalk, you know, but you could ultimately get to the pool that way as it stands. So $298,000 is what we talked about, and that was a combination, I think, of the city's local cash.
It was 117,176. They comes from Northeast Sewer District.
Correct. That's a cost share.
98,663. That's from the city cash. 84,104 in-kind funds. So the total will be 299,979. That would be the total that the city would have to pay for this. And just last week, I was doing an inspection in Brooklyn Heights. There was a contractor who was pouring a concrete apron and driveway and the fire department there. And he happened to be from this area. So I asked him, I said, you know, if we were planning on installing a driveway, I mean a path, 5 feet wide on Gates Mills Boulevard from Cedar to Some Center Road, concrete, 5 foot wide, he came out right away. He says it's about 3/4 of a mile. He says he did the calculation. It would cost about $200,000. So here we are, we're spending $299,000 to do something that's twice as wide as that. It's in asphalt, which is going to need probably more maintenance. And again, in conclusion, this is what I like to say. I like to say that we should submit proper application to the ODNR. We should get their approval first. We need to get some factual numbers and have an accurate drawing stating exactly what's happening there, where the swales are going, where the retention basin, where the trails are going. They have the resident input and feedback. And also, I think we need to get the Architecture Review Board involved, because if they review anything else in the city, I think they also should review these plans, because I think they're very important to the city. And I'm done. So.
All right, so
leave it out to
it's
somebody
about
else.
5 after. I know you want to get this meeting started, so can I just finish the questions that he asked? Okay, so your next question, well, the $298,000. So 117 of that is the cost share, Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. So it's like use it or lose it. Use it for sewer district, stormwater improvements. So it's something that we can use. We've used it in the past for other grants. Oakville Park was one that comes to mind that we used that monies for when we did that improvements. So that's the 117. So it's not coming out of our pocket. It's cost share monies.
Can I have a question on that also?
Yeah.
Can we use this money to fix up the leaky basement in Mayfield Heights?
That's a question outside of my.
No.
Because I think that would be more important to take care of the water issues on Gatesville Boulevard.
Mr. Gerson, do you want to step to the podium and answer that question, please?
Dan Gerson, city engineer. The question was regarding community cost share. So the community cost share is for stormwater improvements. To answer that question, you'd have to make an application to the sewer district, and then they'd give you an answer, so you describe what you can. Generally speaking, anything stormwater related you can use it for, but you got to get permission first. So yes, it could be, but the 117 is not all of the bank that you have in there. So we could look at some of those things, but again, it's got to be stormwater, not sanitary, where Marnell is a lot of sanitary work. So there could be some crossover that you might be able to use, but just flat out, maybe not.
Well, if the stormwater is getting into the sanitary, it means that there is breakage in the storm line, right? So they would apply for it.
Generally speaking, that you could apply some of that, but generally speaking, it's a sanitary issue. And we've had meetings with Marnell. There are some storm sewer issues that I think we can probably address too. So understood, that's possibly a share we could look at.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, if I could tail on that answer for just a moment, please. We do have $300,000 in the budget that's before you tonight for 2022 to address the Marnell issue. This was set aside as money for the pilot program. It's not, and then once we have all of the results from the pilot program, we would go back and readdress that. So we do have money set aside for Marnell in the budget this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fagan.
Real quick, I'll make this
Okay,
real quick.
real quick.
All right, so the other monies that Nino talked about were obviously the local cash match that we have to have. There's a 25% match. And then also the in-kind, so there's certain things that the service department can do. And a lot of those things actually, some of those things come out, the installation of the benches, the purchase of the benches, the installation of all the different trail amenities. So some of those things come out, but there are certain things that we can do with their time. It's not going to cost the city money, so to speak. It's the service department's here, they're already working, they're doing some of that work for us. So that's the answer to that question. Trash and service really should be a non-issue now because that's one of the things that we've taken out. Everyone wants a simple trail, keep it simple, no trash, no benches. So if we have to go up on the boulevard, we'll be obviously going up there more now, so we'd have to pick up trash as it's available. And I would still maintain, Nino, that if the service department is busy and can't do something, the recreation department will make sure that we cover. Our goal is to keep this beautiful, to make it more beautiful. We don't have enough nature in Mayfield Heights as it is right now. We got to hang on to it, right? I mean, the city's not going to have a chance to put in 100 trees, $70,000 worth of trees on Gates Mills Boulevard. We just don't have that kind of money. We have that as part of this grant. I know you put young trees and they might not look beautiful now, but in 10 years, it'll be stunning. Let's see. And then the last question, I think, was just Gates Mills, or the city engineers. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
So in terms of the engineering contract, the proposal, or at least the application, had $66,000, I believe, for engineering. That was an estimate based on the application they did. I ran through what everybody's been asking for on the trail. There's been a lot of things added, some things subtracted. Getting across the boulevard is one of the things, getting across the Cedar. So we ran through, we feel the $105,000 is the design fee, which is appropriate for the application, and then we have $45,000 for inspection and construction administration. So that's on the table. You can one option is you can choose to approve the contract. You can approve portion of the contract, or the other option is you could go out for an RFQ if you feel they're not reasonable for the trail. But we feel that's a reasonable number for what's been asked, for the studies that have been asked and the amount of work that's being done.
So again, we went from 64,844 to not more than 150,000.
Yeah, the 64,000 was in the application. It was done by another engineering firm, but it
I like
wasn't a proposal for the design. So
I like to say that I think the building department should do inspection at this place. And if they don't want to do it, I'm certified by the state to do inspection. I would volunteer to do inspection during construction.
if you prefer to take that out of the contract, I'd be more than willing to let you do that if you feel you can do it.
I'd be more than glad to do it to save
Council
the city
so
money.
chooses one building department to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gerson. Any other questions from council? Sean, I have one quick question. You have taken the parking spaces, I believe you had 20 parking spaces initially in this proposal. So where will residents, or where will anyone who's going to use this beautiful trail, where will they park now? Will they park on the side streets, or can they park on Gates Mills Boulevard?
That's a good question. So, you know, I guess it just depends on where you're going. If you're going to a party on the edge of Long Ridge, you probably are parking on Long Ridge. If you're going to meet someone or to walk up by Marshfield, you might go there. Maybe you go to Kingswood, or maybe you just walk from Cedar Road or, you know, any of those streets to the trail and take the trail as it is.
know.
Anyone that's driving, that's going to throw their bike up on the bike rack and get the kids packed up and haul out and go pack a lunch and go over to Gates Mills Boulevard Trail to ride 3/4 of a mile. They probably certainly could also go to Beechwood or Shaker as well. So I don't necessarily know that this is going to be the mecca for people to come to a 3/4 mile trail. But certainly for the people on Long Ridge and Marshfield and Cedar Road and Somme and Hansford and Kingswood, you know, they would certainly appreciate having the ability to get over there and walk. But I guess I would say probably any of those streets, they might park on the side.
So, okay, so just anyone coming to use this, you know, trail will have to park on the side streets is,
Yes.
okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I do,
Mrs. Sabetta?
thank you. Sean, my understanding is that the
Microphone.
the original application that Mr. Monaco's speaking of, we voted down. We voted not to have the amenities put into the trail, 5-2. Correct?
That was a second.
That was a separate grant.
Yeah.
That was a completely separate grant.
Okay, so we are still back just to the trail.
If you look at your emails,
Yeah.
25 emails, 25 out of 31 people that are up in favor have said, nah, I don't want to say I'm just saying by and large, most of them want a simple trail. There's some people out here that say it would be nice to have a bench on one side or the other and maybe a garbage can or two. I've had those people that have said that, but by and large, the majority have said we don't want to see benches, we don't want to see garbage cans, we don't want to see this, and this. So it's all in your emails to read.
I'm done, yeah.
Okay, are there any other questions? Thank you, Sean, and thank you, Mr. Gerson, for your presentation this evening. Do I have a motion to adjourn our committee of the whole? Moved by Mr. Monaco, seconded by Mr. DeJohn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays? Thank you. Our committee of the whole meeting is now adjourned, and it is 7:15. We will take a short recess before we begin our council meeting. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone this evening to the December 13th council meeting of the City of Mayfield Heights. And hope our residents are celebrating Hanukkah, and I hope you had a nice holiday week. May I please have a roll call?
Mr. Balestrea,
Present.
Mr. Dijon,
Here.
Mr. Mano,
Here.
Mr. Monaco,
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Here?
and Mrs. Teresi.
Here. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Next is the approval of the minutes of our Committee of the Whole meeting that was held on November 22nd of 2021. I hope everyone has had the time to read over the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, seconded by Mr. Monaco. Are there any suggested changes, amendments, or deletions to those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? The minutes of our meeting have been approved. Next, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes of our council meeting of November 22nd of 2021. I apologize, my microphone went off. I hope everyone has had the time to look over these minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestrea,
Second?
second by Mrs. Sabetta. Are there any suggested changes, amendments, or deletions to these minutes? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes of our November 22nd council meeting have been approved. We'll next move on to correspondence and announcements. Are there any announcements or correspondence that the council would like to share? Mrs. Sabetta?
Thank you. The Chagrin River Watershed Partnership had their meeting Thursday at 4 o'clock. It was via Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sabetta. Seeing no other announcements or correspondence, we'll move on to reports of officers, and we'll begin with our mayor, Mayor DeSico.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. Just a couple things this evening. We welcome another new business to Mayfield Heights. On Target ABA recently opened on Landerhaven Drive. The center offers one-on-one therapy sessions for children with autism. So we welcome them to the city and wish them luck. That the police department held the annual Fill the Cruiser food drive this year. We are very grateful for everyone's generosity, especially during this time of the year. And I'd like to thank the police department, along with the auxiliary officers and staff who took time to help. And I'm looking forward to the new year with several major projects on the horizon. I'd like to take this time to wish everyone a wonderful holiday season and a happy, healthy new year. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor DeSico. Does anyone have anything to share with Mayor DeSico this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Law Director, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no report this evening, but I would like to make two notes. There was at your place Resolution Number 2021-95, which is a time required contract to authorize the mayor to enter into, so it would be appropriate to add that to the agenda this evening. And then secondly, there is a typo in the first resolution. It says ordinance in the caption, and that should be a resolution, and that'll be corrected. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. We'll move on to Director of Finance, Mrs. Fagan.
Thank you. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. We'll now move on to reports of committees, commissions, and boards, and we'll begin with the Building Committee, which is the committee that I share. And I do not have a report this evening, as we have not held a meeting. We'll now move on to our Finance and Audit Committee. Mr. Balestrea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The committee did meet on December the 1st to discuss the city's 2022 budget. As a result of that meeting, the committee recommends the budget to council tonight by ordinance number 2021-36. And that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Balistrea. Any questions for Mr. Balistrea? We'll move on to our legislative committee, Mr. Monaco.
Thank you, Madam President. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. We'll move on to our Public Works and Service Committee, Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. On tonight's agenda, we have a resolution 2021-93, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the GDP Group to administer our pilot dye testing program for Marnell and Ascot flooding issues. Mr. Gerson sent in a letter to the mayor and all of council detailing this project. Mr. Gerson is here tonight, and we can ask him any questions when this comes up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeJohn. We'll move on to Recreation and Parks Committee, Mr. Mano.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The Breakfast with Santa was held this past weekend at the DeJohn Community Center, and it was a big success. Thank you to the Parks and Recreation Commission and all the volunteers who helped make this event a success. The December Park and Recreation meeting has been canceled. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Mano. We will now move on to Safety and Transportation Committee, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. No report.
Thank you. We'll go to Board of Zoning Appeals, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. The Board of Zoning will meet tomorrow here in council chambers at 7 o'clock. There is one item on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to Planning Commission, Mr. Balistrea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Planning Commission met on Monday, December the 6th. As a result of that meeting, we had one item that's on the agenda this evening. It's Resolution 2021-90, and we can address any questions at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to comments from the public. This is the public portion of our meeting. Pursuant to City Code, each person will be allotted 5 minutes to speak, with a maximum of 30 minutes for the entire public portion. If you are here in connection with an agenda item, this is your opportunity to address council. If you would like to be heard this evening, please raise your hand and address for the record. Let's wait just a minute. It is now 7:32, and I will open the public portion. Would anyone like to speak? Okay. No. So did you turn in?
I sure did, yeah. I never do that. I spoke twice and never had a fill-a-phone, so I'm glad I caught that.
If you would just give us your name and address, please.
Yes, good evening. I'm Kathy Tobin, and I've lived at 6470 Gates Mills Boulevard for the last 18 years, and I'd like to share some information about the Trails Project and how I feel about it. In theory, having a trail in the median of Gatesville's Boulevard sounds like a great idea. It would be nice to have a break and have another place to go for a quick walk. But we are not theoretically building a trail on Gates Mills Boulevard. It's easy to have big ideas and imagine what might be possible and what it could be, but as we know, the devil is always in the details. So here are the critical details that have to be considered, and you can't pretend that they don't matter. As we know, speeding has been a problem for a long time, but nothing has ever been done to really deal with it. It has always mattered, but why it really matters now is that residents who would like to ride their bikes or take a walk need to get on the median safely. The draft rendering shared with residents included a rapid beacon that residents can use before crossing. This assumes that the cars will stop. We will have children who may want to go by themselves with their friends for a walk, or younger children who will be walking with their parents. And we know kids, they like to run ahead, and they don't always pay attention. If we don't get a handle on this problem, someone may seriously get hurt. And I think the city would have exposure if they continue to do nothing to curb this issue. The connectivity study highlighted that the public's greatest concern is safety, specifically the potential for vehicular conflicts as well as unsafe locations, which included Gates Mills Boulevard traffic circle at SOM. The big dreams, if they are ever realized, as we have learned, there may be 240 people daily on the boulevard. Think about that for a moment. And be aware that it's part of the Greenway project. So it actually is going to connect to Euclid Creek Reservation to be able to come all the way up to here. So it's really about creating a lot of quote-unquote connectivity. The second is maintenance. The grass in the middle of the meeting is cut by the city, but it doesn't come and pick up the garbage that's thrown out of the windows of the cars that speed by. In fact, I understand one of the residents regularly picks up the garbage on the median. I heard one of the city council members complaining about the garbage that's accumulating under the Marcel Bridge. According to the grant that was submitted by the city, it says it's going to pick up the garbage and inspect the trail daily. Really? What the grant application did not include was watering the 100 trees, 300 shrubs, and 1,000 perennials that they say they are planting that's listed in the application. Or has this changed too? The connectivity study highlighted that the current sidewalks have been impacted by deferred maintenance, which really means they aren't being maintained. The recommendation in the study was that maintaining existing sidewalks alone would serve to greatly improve the pedestrian connectivity within the city. I was trained by industrial and organizational psychologists, and the one thing I learned is that past behavior predicts future behavior. If you aren't maintaining your current projects, how are you going to maintain your future ones? And the final thing that's very upsetting to me is how all of this has been handled. This particular grant that you will be voting on moving forward did not get any input from the residents before it was submitted on January 27th, 2020. Instead, the mayor and the council president signed an emergency resolution that stated it was for the immediate preservation of the public peace, health, and safety of the city and its residents. In addition, the second and third readings were suspended. 5 city council members were required to sign off on this to make it valid. Which 5 of you did that? Because I would like an explanation on what makes this an emergency resolution. It was not until November 18th, 2021, that we had the horrible meeting where you changed the amenities at the last minute, didn't bring an updated copy, and created the conditions that made it adversarial, pitted residents against each other, and no one took any notes. I don't consider that an input meeting. This whole process has been reactionary. Only when you wanted to go for a grant did you pretend to want input. I don't know, I was very confused by all of this, just as you are about the new grants. And I was trying to figure it out because I've come late to this party. But when I watched the November 27th city council meeting where you were discussing the grant and you were just as confused as I've been, that didn't instill a lot of confidence in me. And in fact, you asked a question even tonight that shows there's still confusion about what's in the grants. I do not think we are really ready to move forward with this grant. I am not in favor of moving forward. We deserve as residents to be included in the process to make our city better. And that means early in the process, when we can help shape what is included and not feel like we have to come out at the 11th hour and feel like we have to come to these meetings to be for or against what you put together without us. I want you to really reflect on how this all played out and decide how you're going to engage with us in a more transparent and collaborative way. I do not have any confidence in you right now. And quite frankly, this whole process has eroded any trust that I could have had. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Yeah. Can we just call the names of those who have turned in their sheets?
Hi. Yeah, my name is Frank Leone. I live at 6571 Gates Mills Boulevard.
Yes, Nat.
Anthony might have hit it, but the mayor. Yeah.
Seriously?
Thank you, Mayor. All right, may I go?
Sure.
All right. So again, my name is Frank Leone. I live at 6571 Gates Mills Boulevard. I encourage council to vote against the trail. You must have all the facts and data in making a decision on a project this big. In 2018, 19, and 20, the city conducted a promises and community engagement surveys. The surveys had less than 2.5% respondents out of a population of 19,000. Of the less than 2.5%, we don't know how many respondents were actually owner-occupied homes that pay property taxes. What we do know of the less than 2.5%, only 36% of that would like to see trails. That's an extremely low number. This will be a public park. Traffic, parking, maintenance, and safety will create big issues today and many more problems tomorrow that have not been fully vetted. An independent local traffic study by a certified professional firm should have been performed first. Do you have the data on how many vehicles are driven on a daily basis around Som Circle, Cedar Road, Gates Mills Boulevard, west, east, north, south? How many cars drive in and out of Sunoco every day? Woodhawk, Long Ridge, Marshfield, Kingswood. The grant application states that 241 people will use the trail per day during peak. What evidence is there to support this? The application also states that it will be wheelchair accessible. Where will the disabled park? These are extremely dangerous numbers and conditions. Do you know truly what the police department's official plans are to patrol the activities on this trail? Is the trail going to be closed after dark? The Sun Messenger reported on December 2nd that vandalism occurred at Oakville Park. The project, from the letter I received, says that a 25% match by the city, or $125,000, is what it is. What truly is the actual budget for cost overruns? We are in an inflationary period. Double or triple that cost. How will it impact me and others as a taxpayer? Has the service department come up with an annual budget to maintain this area all year long? Will our taxes rise because of it? Has any research been done by members of city government on how this will affect our property taxes? The public has not been advised of any of this. No one is willing to guarantee in writing that amenities will be added later. The revised agenda at the trail meeting said no beacons. Beacons are now in the revised plan. I received a letter from a city official that states no benches or trash cans. I also have an email from a city official that states benches and trash cans will be considered. Again, no consistency. Whenever something is questioned, residents are told what residents want to hear. Residents are told what residents want to hear. I'm sure you agree that the rendering of the Marceau underpass looks nothing like the completed project. There are no definitive answers on this project. The Woodhawk residents said no to this trail. There is no official approval from Gates Mills Village or Pepper Pike to connect. This is a trail to nowhere. You need to have all the facts and data. Please vote against it.
Thank you. Next, we're going to call Alexis Deal.
Good evening, council members. My name is Alexis Deal. I live on Marceau Road. I was able to speak with a few of you on the matter of the Trails project, and I thank you for your time. Tonight, you have before you a decision to go forward with the engineer drawing up plans for the trail on Gates Mills Boulevard, and I implore you to vote yes. I have heard the concerns of people about the trails, and Sean previously addressed those this evening. I would like to address the positive points of the trail. This is a huge improvement to the connectivity and usability of parks and amenities in our city. Along this line, Pepper Pike is going to apply for this grant to continue the trail down to Pepper Pike. For myself and my 12-year-old son, we use the trails on Shaker Boulevard often, as my parents live in Shaker. If we could get all the way down there on bicycles without being worried about getting hit by vehicles, that would be amazing. We are also not just putting in a path, we are also fixing the standing water problem and also beautification of this area. I know that there were many concerns about the money that the city would have to match. If you look into the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, there's money that has been allotted to individual cities from the state if we apply for it, and this money would greatly impact the amount that would come out of the city budget. I also took a random poll on a Mayfield Heights community information group to see who was for or against. We got 110 votes, 101 yes, 9 no. This project is for the city and all its residents, not just a select handful. And the vote of every member of our community counts the same. We must move forward as a city and as a community. We must look at the future. Making our entire city more accessible on foot and bicycle by our residents is imperative. We should not have to get in our car and drive somewhere to be able to walk in our city. This is not a destination for people to drive to and walk. This is for the people of our city to be able to utilize the outdoor space we have in our city. If there is a majority no vote tonight, we will not be able to get grant money for years to come to help with anything else in our city. This is a huge negative impact on so many of our residents. Please take into consideration the large majority of voters in our city that want this trail and beautification and the future of our city when you make your vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's move to Annette Phillips.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to have our moment to speak to you.
Please state your, excuse me for interrupting, but please state your name and your address for the record.
All right, as you said, my name is Annette Phillips. I live at 1401 West Minor Road. I have been a resident of Mayfield Heights my entire life. I grew up in Mayfield Heights. I moved away for short term once I was married, and I've returned to Mayfield Heights. This certainly is not the same Mayfield Heights I grew up in. This issue that we have before us today is the cart before the horse. I understand about beautification of this city. I'm all for it. But a path to nowhere makes no sense. This is the cart before the horse. There is information that is needed to make an educated consideration for this not to go through. Sean himself, I heard him say that if we don't use the money for this grant, how can we possibly go back and ask again? It won't be available. That's what this is. This is nothing but a Trojan horse because we're trying to get in money later on for our community. It was done prematurely. Mr. Monaco, I couldn't have said it better than you did tonight. Thank you for your concern, because it's the concern of a lot of people sitting here today. We need to know what is going on as a community. Yes, people want a trail. Yes, people want to walk. I wish I was as healthy as the young lady who spoke before me that could drive a bike from Mayfield Heights to Shaker. That's not going to happen for me or the majority of people looking to use this trail. This is 3/4 of a mile to nowhere. We needed more information. We went off before we were ready to execute. And today, I stand before you like many other people, and I ask that you reconsider and not allow this to go through. More information is needed so people can make an educated decision on their livelihood. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Next will be Jeff Sutker.
Thank you. My name is Jeff Sutker. I live at 6590 Gates Mills Boulevard. Unlike everybody else here, I've been a resident of the city for, I guess, not quite 2 months. I moved in October 18th, so we haven't hit the 2-month mark yet. I walk that median every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, because I have a 60-pound dog, and my dog needs exercise. And quite frankly, the exercise has been very good for me as well. The median, as it currently exists, is unwalkable. It is spongy when it's dry and uneven, and it is very seldom dry. Even in September, which was a relatively dry month here, rain sat on my side of the street, which would be the south side. There's a long, long pool of water that sits there for days. Doesn't go away in 48 hours. And yes, I would guess that if it were warmer and not covered over with ice like it was yesterday, we might see some mosquitoes in the summer. I agree that people throw trash out. I somehow had to keep my dog from eating a turkey carcass out there a couple of weeks ago. I have no idea where it came from. But not building the trail doesn't stop people from throwing out trash. That's a situation that doesn't change just because you don't do something different. I've listened to people talk about how dangerous this street is. I used to live near Cedar Road. I mean, down by Beechwood Place. I know what traffic looks like, and Gates Mills Boulevard is not Cedar Road. I've managed to get across the street in a minute or two every time I've tried. I look only one way because cars only come from one way. I can see probably 10 houses back, and I managed to get my dog across safely every day without even coming close to a car. If we don't build the trail, yeah, we may have fewer people crossing, but we're still going to have speeders on the street. We're still going to have people that have to get across the median, whether they're going to Woodhawk or they're trying to get up to Somme or they're trying to get across to visit a neighbor. And it's still going to be just as dangerous as it is today. So we're not fixing anything by not building the trail. We're afraid of what might be. And what I'll tell you is what is not. What is not is a street that could be more beautiful than it is. What we don't have without the trail is a way for people in the middle and far end of the street to get up to Somme, to get to other places. It's not a trail to nowhere. For the people who live in the middle of the street or further down the street, it's a way to get up to Somme, to get over to whether it's Marsall or whether it is Walmart or whether it's any of the stores down there. Our intent is to walk this summer to dinner because we'll be able, because we can if we can get to Somme and cross Somme. Right now, my walks are pretty much limited to crossing the median, going down Woodhawk, coming back in the afternoon. And the other thing that I found is I've met more people on Woodhawk than I have on my own street. On my own street, I know exactly 3 people. I know the neighbor to either side, and I know Frank, because his wife stopped over to ask me what I thought about the trail. And so I now know 3 people out of the 50 on my street. If you think about the places where you've lived, think about how you met your neighbors. You met them going down the sidewalk, walking out and seeing them mowing the lawn or walking their dog or doing whatever, and you struck up a conversation. The street's very isolating. The street is extremely isolating. And I'm hoping that since I spend a lot more time at home these days now that I'm retired, that having that trail will help me create a sense of community on the street. And I think we lose track when we talk about the budget, and I think we lose track when we talk about process in what really could be accomplished. Beautification, community, place to go. All those things, I think, are very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Slutker. Richard Bollinger.
Good evening, I'm Richard Bollinger, 6457 Gates Mills Boulevard. We've lived here 2.5 years now. We love it. Just want to say a few words in this form of rebuttal. I've heard a lot of fear expressed about people coming from all over to use the trails. I really don't see that. I can't imagine 240-some people. It's going to be the people who live there, as this gentleman said, cross, somebody you can walk back and forth. You have a circle at either end. I don't see people packing strollers in their cars or house bikes on bike carriers to park on either side street and then walk to a half or 3/4 mile trail. They will instead head for South Chagrin Reservation, Acacia, Shaker Lakes, somewhere they can enjoy nature, spend an hour more. Finally, I'd like to address the council members with a quote from George Bernard Shaw. Progress is impossible without change. Those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bollinger. Pat Alvarez.
I'm Pat Alvarez, live at 6561 Gates Mills Boulevard for 42 years. The only thing I want to say is the people that have been up here and not for the trail, I am not for the trail for all of the reasons that they have stated. I'm also a member of the Chagrin River Land Conservancy, which is a private nonprofit conservation organization that was formed in 1987 to preserve the scenic beauty, rural character, and natural resources of the Chagrin River watershed through direct land protection and promotion of the responsible use of the land. There are 31 municipalities that belong to this, one of which is Mayfield Heights. The Chagrin River Land Conservancy actively seeks to preserve land in all 31 communities. Open space is a very important part of this. The only green space on Gates Mills Boulevard in Mayfield Heights is the median strip on Gates Mills Boulevard. It's a beautiful thing to look out your window and see this. It's a beautiful thing to ride in the fall and see the change of the trees. We want to conserve for generations to come the only green space in Mayfield Heights. Everything else is asphalt, concrete buildings. And this is what our mayor wants to put: outhouses, trash cans, trails, signs. It's just awful. It's a desecration. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Alvarez. I now need a motion to extend our public portion. Do I have a motion?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balistrea, seconded by Mr. Monaco. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to Peggy Zimmer. State your name and address, and please speak into the microphone so we can hear a little bit better. Thank you.
Is that better?
That's better. Thank you.
My name is Peggy Zimmer. I've lived on Gates Mills Boulevard for over 30 years, and I've lived in Mayfield Heights for 60 years. I'm pretty old, but...
And your address, please.
Oh, 6501 Gates Mills Boulevard. Now, many of my questions have been answered, but this street to nowhere, I want to really magnify because it's going nowhere. How long will it take to get any more grants to go up Som Center and Marsal over to City Park? Years and years. So I'm not even counting on that happening. We have, you said 271 people on a good day? I'll bet you 10 or 15 people on a good day. We have dogs. We've had horses. We had horses this summer. They come from Gates Mills Boulevard, from Gates Mills. And they go up, right up the boulevard. I don't know where they go from there, but I've seen them. And the petitions, I was not asked to sign a petition. I saw the person go by. She went by my house. She went by my neighbors, across the street. She ignored them because she knows how we feel. We do not want the path. I think we have gone too fast, and this should be examined much more carefully than it has been. And I wonder if you all remember how expensive our taxes are in the county to pay for our metro parks. We have wonderful, wonderful everything in metro parks. Why don't we go there and walk? There's lots of miles of paths. I think the let the people vote should be the next step. And I am, for one, will vote no. So I don't want a path to nowhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Zimmer. Teresa Angela Del Balso.
My name is Teresa Angela Del Balso. I reside at 1172 Lander Road. I've been a resident for over 15 years. And prior to this address, I was on Woodhurst, 1640 Woodhurst Avenue. And we had a gated entrance to our supposed beautiful city park. I told my sons, you have the largest backyard in America. I know Sean Ward mentioned about beautifying our city. If we could first beautify and repair everything that in our city that's already damaged and needs beautifying, such as our city park, our pool, for instance. It's been over 21 years that I've been using that myself and my kids and has yet to be repaired. There's been redesigns and proposals for that, and every time there aren't funds for that. And then all of a sudden, now there's a grant and there's funds for this. Can we please beautify our city first? There is on Som Center Road a brick. It had a waterfall that no longer is beautiful. The bricks are falling apart. It's been brought to my attention that there's too many car accidents that damage that area. I'm a nurse, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not an insurance agent or attorney, but if there are car accidents there, wouldn't the insurance companies be liable for repairing that brick building and beautifying that waterfall again? There are also dead trees. I know that there is proposals that you're going to plant beautiful trees and bushes. That's great, but I've called the city 3 times on a dead tree on my curbside that is city property. I've had 3 estimates left in my mailbox saying that it's a dead tree. We'd be happy to remove it. It would cost this and also the stump removal, but it's not my tree. I'm also a tenant, so I don't even own the house I'm in, and I've called a couple times. So if that tree is going to remain dead and not look beautiful, how are we going to beautify our city more by adding this trail? I'm not so much against the trail, but I would like to see our city repaired and remodeled first before we add anything else more beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Del Balso. Mary Moore.
Hi, my name is Mary Moore, and I live at 6583 Gates Mills Boulevard.
And I love living on Gates Mills Boulevard. I love looking out my window and seeing the trees and just the serenity of it all. I did send council a letter stating my concerns of why I am not in favor of the trail, so I won't go into repeating all those tonight. But I did want to say, I've been on the Boulevard almost 24 years, and I have never had a survey. I have never been approached for an opinion. In fact, in 2020, I found out about the meeting that this was going through 2 days before the meeting. There has been no communication. So I don't know who's answering all those surveys, but I don't think it's the people on Gates Mills Boulevard. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Caitlin Porath? Please state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Porath. I live at 6619 Kingswood Drive. And my husband, family, and I moved in about 6 to 8 months ago. And we were extremely excited to hear about the trail project. We currently, are able to walk about 15 houses down and turn around. So we do actually walk down the median. And it is very difficult to walk down. My husband's much better at it than me, pushing a stroller and chasing a 4-year-old. But it is very difficult to walk down, but it's the only thing we can do right now. So the trail would change the walkability for us significantly. It would have a big impact on, what we do day to day in raising our family in this community, which we're very excited to do. And that would just change, really where we're able to get to. So we are very much for the trail, and we hope you vote as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jennifer Carlino, 6442 Fairhaven. Sorry, it's difficult to read your last name here.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jennifer Carlino. I'm at 6442 Fairhaven, and I am in favor of the trail, and I just want to sort of present a perspective that no one has mentioned so far. I understand some of the arguments against it, but I think that as a young, I have a young family, that Mayfield Heights needs to look at this as an opportunity to help retain, from a competitive advantage, other families who are looking to move to local areas that do offer these sorts of opportunities and trails. And I think that there are other communities out there that are more receptive to these, and therefore, I think will sort of attract young families more so than what the current arguments are stating here. And I think that that's just a perspective that we should consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carlino. Maria Hyam?
Hi, I'm Maria Hyam at 1339 Summit Drive. I just wanted to say I would not use the trail. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Diorio.
She wouldn't use it.
Hello, Lisa Diorio, 200 Chatham Way. And I just want to say, I think there's too many questions and concerns about the trail to be done at this point. I think the Metro Park offers a much better, beautiful option for people to go walking, and I will not use the trail. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathleen Krioski.
Good evening. I'm Kathleen Kresge. I live at 6567 Long Ridge Road.
I am not for the trail for several reasons, but one is because I've lived there for a while, and regarding the traffic on Gates Mills Boulevard, it's not as bad now because of the pandemic. So a lot of people who work at the business areas are not working, they're working remotely. So trust me, because I work. So the second thing is, did anybody think about all the rescue squads that go down Gates Mills Boulevard, going to Hillcrest? So to me, that's a safety issue when you have small kids and stuff like that. And there's a lot of them because it's the quickest way for them to get there, because Mayfield is slower. And also, just in my personal history, I think the cyclists will not use the trail. So the big groups of bicyclists, they'll stay on the street. So you'll have to worry about people on the trail and then cyclists in the street. And thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Alana Mastrangelo.
Hi, 6461 Long Ridge Road. I am encouraging City Council to vote against the trail on Gates Mills Boulevard. I specifically chose the southeast corner of Mayfield Heights for the more secluded, isolated feel that it provides. I believe that the trail will take away from that. It also sets the precedence for more to come, such as the parking lots, the kiosks, the trash cans, the flashing beacons, etc. And I believe that the best way to ensure that these items do not get installed is to refrain from implementing the trail itself. Moreover, the Gates Mills Boulevard median is not a park. It's just a narrow strip of land between a very busy road. I don't think that it's practical to have as a park. It also, as many others have said tonight, it leads to nowhere. Yeah, so, and then the parking on, it's just anyone who would go out there, it would probably create that additional parking on Long Ridge and Marshfield. And just don't want to add more foot traffic and cars to the houses that we bought on Gates Mills, Long Ridge, and Marshfield. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Sharon Antonelli.
Hi, I'm Sharon Antonelli. I live at 6497 Long Ridge Road, and I am asking you to vote against the trail as well. I have lived on Long Ridge for about 25 years now, and I think that it's concerning that the people who live on Gates Mills and streets like Long Ridge have not been very involved in this whole process. It's frustrating hearing, especially the people on Gates Mills Boulevard didn't know about things. I was here at a meeting last year when we talked about the issue of trails, and I thought we put it to bed. The idea that things keep changing every meeting that we go to is concerning. I think that a lot of us liked the idea of a trail, but if we think about the safety aspect involved and how other people have mentioned, it is a very narrow strip of road that has a busy boulevard with a circle on one side and a kind of confusing intersection on the other. And Sean mentioned bikers and how they could come out onto the circle. And I know that when we had the meeting last month, we talked about how the bikers that are more serious bikers are not going to be using that trail. It's going to be more of a biker that bikes leisurely. The thought of a biker coming off of the trail and onto the circle, if anyone's traveled around that circle, it's already confusing. The idea of more bikes going around that circle is concerning. And the idea of how it's going to connect our city is also very confusing to me. When you come down 91 to that circle, there are so many crossovers already to get to that little patch. I just don't think that it makes sense. think it's a great idea in theory. I just don't think it's the right thing to do on Gates Mills Boulevard. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Antonelli. Michael Hallapi and Kelly Thompson.
Hi, I'm Kelly Thompson. I live at 6330 Eastondale Road.
Michael Hallapi, 6330 Eastondale.
I'm going to let you do the talking.
Okay. First, we're against the trail. It is a good idea. I grew up in Brecksville, probably a half mile from Valley Parkway, which has a trail that goes from Strongsville to the Cuyahoga River. When we wanted to go to the river, we drove down to Station Road, parked our car, and walked there. We have the Metro Parks 3 miles with 30 miles of trails on it. Sean mentioned that the connector would be the sidewalk on Som Center Road. If the sidewalk's acceptable, put sidewalks on Gates Mills Boulevard and maybe fix the sidewalks in the neighborhoods. Because I walk my dog every day. I've walked around that median numerous times. You see the same 25, 30 people walking in our neighborhood, not 241, 30, maybe 40. It's the same families. You say hi. I know all their dogs by name. They come to me. This is my dress code, so there's no dog treats in the pocket. But normally there's dog treats in the pocket. It just doesn't make sense. And just because the state or the federal government is going to give us money, doesn't mean we have to take it. Maybe we could set an example here that these giveaways, someone's paying for them. Me, you, my boss, your bosses. And just because the government wants to give us money, we don't have to take it. We have plenty of amenities. Let's fix what we have. And if you want to go for a nice walk, North Chagrin Reservation is there. I can show you the way around it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. or Ms. Jimenez.
My name is Amina Ibrahim Jimenez. I live on 6420 Eastondale Road. I almost echo everything my neighbor said. I would rather see the money spent on fixing our road that has not been fixed since I moved in 2005. And I would also like to see maybe the money spent on a sidewalk along Gates Mills Boulevard instead of in the middle as a trail. Thank you.
Thank you. Carlo Mastrangelo.
Hi, my name is Carlo Mastrangelo. I live on 6556 Long Ridge Road. I'm against the trail. I think it's, for one, I think it's going to be dangerous crossing. For two, I don't want people parking on side streets. And number three, most importantly, a lot of people are talking about the beautifying the city. I think it's beautiful the way it is, honestly. I like it's plain, simple, and open. Thank you.
Thank you. Brad Bowen.
Thank you, Council, for your time tonight. We appreciate it. First, I'd like to welcome Mr. Sucker to Mayfield Heights. I've been a resident here since 1994. I, too, moved away. I'm Brad Bowen from 1620 Woodhurst Avenue. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Thanks.
I, too, live on Woodhurst Avenue. The park is my backyard also. I would just like to say the city owns a lot next to my house, and there was a house there. It was torn down. It couldn't have gone any smoother. I am glad to have the city as technically my neighbor on, two sides of my house. They were respectful during the beautification. They always manicure and maintain the property next to my house. So I have no doubt that when I see them working in the backyard on the park, they're going to cut the grass in the lot next to me, that they're going to keep and maintain the properties around the city that they do. I currently do walk a lot around the city. I'm doing a specific workout, and this would be a new place to go, something interesting. You know, I have to walk at least 45 minutes outside, and I also have to do a 45-minute workout inside. So, you know, walking around the park, walking around my side streets, it kind of gets boring. I want to go somewhere new. I want to see something. You know, this is a place for people with families that can go for walks, take their kids, be outside. So much of COVID kept people inside. We need to know that there's something else to do. Honestly, if I lived on Gates Mills Boulevard, I don't know how I would live without a sidewalk on my street. I grew up on Bonnie Lane. Who here goes to Costco? I'm pretty sure everybody does. My parents' house is the corner house. I grew up with woods. Now my parents have cars going up and down the street. And that's the side street, because you're supposed to enter by Bob Evans, but you don't. You go the other way. You pass my parents' house. I grew up there. I grew up in those woods. You know, this is not an inconvenience. Yeah, you know, I can't speak for previous plans or proofs, but literally they are telling us now there are no other amenities. There's nothing. All it is to me, it's a legit sidewalk. It's a legit trail sidewalk that you can just go and walk on. Like Mr. Sucker said, he knows 3 people. I walk my sidewalk and I talk to so many of my neighbors. I sit on my front porch having a beer and, you know, people just randomly start talking to me. He wants to meet people. He gets it. Other people that have lived there for 20, 40 years, they, you know, are set in their ways. I want to see the expansion of Mayfield Heights because I want to eventually have my family grow up where I grew up and experience everything that I experienced. This really does... how do I want to word this? We call our community unity days. That's what we call it. This is unifying our community. It's an area within walking distance from me. A lot of people use it. And, you know, if you're worried about what's going on, what do you do when you're out there and you see Mr. Sucker with a 60-pound dog or other people walking around because you say there's maybe 10 people that will use it? What do you do now when they're walking there? Do you feel bad for them that their shoes are muddy or something going on? It's important that it's, yeah. I don't know. Now I'm just rambling, and thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Edwin Sarver.
Good evening, I'm Edwin Sarver, and me and my family live at 1650 Chelmsford Road. I want to voice my support for the construction of the trail on Gates Mills Boulevard. Last year, the council approved the project to make drastic changes to the Mayfield City Park and pool. These amenities exist right across the street from me. Everybody in the city got a chance to help decide what the plans would look like for these improvements. And this is as it should be. It wasn't just up to the people that lived the closest. Likewise, the trail is what the community as a whole wants. It should not be decided by a few people who happen to live the closest. It will be a great enabler for safe, sustainable, and equitable transportation within our community and into surrounding communities. These benefits would be realized from a piece of land that the taxpayers of this city currently pay to maintain and that no one can safely use. And while ultimately we would still have to pay to maintain the land, as we currently do, at least it could be used by the people who are paying to maintain it. So I urge you to continue with the trail project. It is a step in the right direction for us as a community, and it will benefit us for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sarver. Michael Buffa.
Michael Buffa. I live at 6493 Gates Mills Boulevard. First, I just want to say thank you to all the council people who've given me time and have heard my concerns about the trail project. My opinion has not changed. I'm still strongly against it. And Ms. Sabetta, I'm sorry we've never connected, but I do thank you for reaching out. I saw that on my phone several times. You know, the reasons why I don't support this really come down to the fact that it is a trail to nowhere. It's just a loop. And I have a couple concerns, and many people have expressed my concerns already, so I won't go through all of them. And again, you all I've talked with a good number of you, and you've given me a lot of time already. The first thing that I want to just mention is this issue about it being handicapped accessible. With the fact that this is going to be in the middle of the median, I don't understand how someone would access the path if you have a physical challenge. You have to enter it through one of the medians or from Cedar. That doesn't seem very practical or safe. And I guess I just share that to say I think it's a detail, one of many that is not thought through or explained or defined. And I think those kind of questions need to be answered before we can proceed. Second, you talk about people in the surrounding area utilizing the path. If you live on Cedar, you're going to be walking along a street with no sidewalk to get to this path, and I don't see that happening. I don't see people utilizing it in that way. I don't understand our other neighbors who, live in other parts of the city who claim they're going to use it. It's not accessible. You have to walk a long distance to get to the path, and when you get it's just silly. It's a path to nowhere. And I'm not against exercise. I think that's a great goal for the city to help increase ways for people to exercise and get out there. That's one of the reasons why a couple years ago we all voted for the tax bill so that the community center at the high school could be used for workout facilities and paths there. I believe that in the new recreation design and pool design, there's going to be a recreation area in that as well. And so I don't think it's because of a lack of resources for people that they have to have our path to exercise. And I've lived on Gates Mills Boulevard for a long time now. I do know all my neighbors, and I like all my neighbors. And I don't know the guy who just moved into the Rothenberg's house, but I knew Mr. Rothenberg, and I'm sure I'll get to know him as well. So I think we're a tight community already. I think I'll just end by saying it was really disheartening seeing how this whole thing has progressed and how it's really being pitted so that we're against one another. If you're against the PATH project, it's because you're old or because you don't believe in change. I think that's offensive. I don't think that we need this path to attract young families. I think Pepper Pike has no problem attracting young families, and they have no sidewalks. So I think, it's a decent idea. I think it was rushed. I was never surveyed in any way. Another thing I'll just make note of, when I saw the actual grant proposal, cross-country skiing was not one of the options selected. People use that area today for cross-country skiing in the winter. So no one even took the time to learn that. Mrs. Zimmer mentioned about the horses. When the path is there, do the horses continue to use that area? So it is being utilized today, and I don't think the people who put this proposal together really understand how it's being used. And I guess I'll end with that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Buffa. Next, we have Jeremy King.
Jeremy King. I live at 2038 Hansford Road. My family and I love living in Mayfield Heights. Before living on Hansford, we lived on East Minor Road. We've got 2 young children and a third on the way. We have so much pride in this community. We love volunteering and serving and participating in citywide events as much as we can. We are very excited for the new parks and aquatic center and all the projects going into making Mayfield more beautiful, including possibly this trail. And we're very thankful for leadership that cares about the community, that's even talking about wanting to do something like this. So thank you. When we first moved to our new house on Hansford, on the south side of the city, we immediately realized how disconnected that part of the community was from the rest of the city. Some people are moving there for that reason, but it's a valid reality. We don't have sidewalks on Cedar Road on the south side. We don't have sidewalks on Gates Mills Boulevard. There's not even a sidewalk actually to cross the roundabout. Like, there's no safe way to walk from that part of the city to any of the rest of the city. And with the new aquatic center and the new parks and the shopping centers and the restaurants, we are physically disconnected from the city. As it's been confirmed again and again tonight, the initial proposal for this project sounded a lot more like a park. Those things have been taken away. There's not going to be benches or kiosks or bathrooms or trash cans or lights. This isn't a park. This is a glorified sidewalk. And that's disappointing. I would have loved to have a park there, but that's okay. It's a glorified sidewalk that we're talking about. And that's been in response to hearing concerns from the community. It's compromise. You've heard from people on Gates Mills that didn't want those things, and now the plan is for a glorified sidewalk. And I understand those concerns are important, but so are the concerns of the other neighbors that live in the south side of the city. You know, we are concerned that we're disconnected from the community. We are concerned that my family has a 5-minute walk around our loop on Hansford Road, and that's as far as we can walk. Those are concerns that many of my neighbors have expressed also. And so I'm encouraging you to listen to their voices and concerns as well. Adding this walking trail, it seems to be a no-brainer. It's going to increase an opportunity for families to walk safely. It's going to allow us as part of the city to feel connected to the rest of the city. It's going to enable us to walk down the street and connect with other neighbors in the community. This is going to attract new residents to the community who are looking for a community that cares about these kinds of things. I encourage you, City Council people, to listen to all of the voices, even the voices that you won't hear tonight. One of the major beneficiaries of this project are families with children who are at home right now putting those kids to bed, and you aren't being able to listen to them tonight. So I'd encourage you, not only listen to who's talking tonight, but consider the voices of those you aren't listening to. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. King. I think we need another motion.
No, okay.
We're good? Okay. Matt Medic.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Matt Medic, 1512 Woodhurst Avenue. I'm going to read off a quick letter I sent all of you, everyone at the table here today. So I'm an avid supporter in promoting pedestrian connectivity within Mayfield Heights, including the Gates Mills Boulevard Trail. My background's in architecture, master's in urban design from Kent State, and over 25 years in experience in the built environment. So this is a lot of things I do within my company. And trails and walkable communities have been proven to make sustainable, healthy, and safe communities. These studies go back 30, 40 years. Books, articles, white papers supporting the importance of walkable communities. And this stuff's all Googleable, searchable for anyone. And this is part of the reason why, the federal government and the state has offered these grants to communities, is to promote this type of activity. So. And these studies also show that property values do increase when done properly within the adjacent properties for these type of improvements. In general, I've been a resident only 3 years. Mayfield Heights, grew up in the east side of Cleveland, South Euclid, Lyndhurst. And Mayfield Heights is a community designed and developed based on the automobile. It's a little different than some of our surrounding communities. A lot of the developments were done by developers laid out in a way that's really not pedestrian friendly or in mind. And our community is further divided by I-271 Mayfield Road, creating physical barriers within our community. These two roadway systems to prevent residents from walking, hiking, biking, or running within our community. Mayfield Road will never be a pedestrian-friendly road, no matter what good design principles we add in the future. There are too many curb cuts, too much traffic, making a hazard for any pedestrian. That leaves our only east-west connectors for the pedestrians and residents to be Marshall Road and Ridgeberry. The plan to connect Woodhawk and Lander Haven Corporate Complex was unfortunately struck down. This is unfortunate. I have my business in Lander Haven Corporate Complex, and during a nice day, there are plenty of walkers, especially during the lunch hour around the Parker trails. So it does get used and will get used. We also need to connect the community with the new parks, community center pool, which involve completing Marshall Road connector, improvements to Som on the west side, which could connect to the new Gates Mills trails. Connectivity is key to making the city a place where people want to live. We are surrounded by communities that have implemented these strategies and have proven to work. We must allow the entire community to voice their opinions on the use of city-owned land when we look at improving our community. This should just not be the vote of just the residents near these kind of improvements to our city. I implore the council to hear the voices of the entire community and do what's right to make our city a more walkable, healthy, and sustainable community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Medic. And our last speaker is Christine Porath.
Hello, and thank you. You made me last.
We saved the best for last.
All right. Well, I won't be as dynamic, I'm sure, or as eloquent as most people, but my name's Christine Porath. I live at 1389 Commonwealth. I have been a resident of Mayfield Heights for a very long time. I grew up at 1389 Commonwealth. I moved away. I lived at 1289 Sunset for 14 years. I've lived at 6493 Gates Mills Boulevard. I'm very familiar with Gates Mills Boulevard, and I just don't think this is the right time. I don't think you're well enough informed. I don't think you're capable of informing us with transparent information. I'm asking you to consider a no vote at this time. I don't think that it has to be no forever, but it is not a well conceived thought at this time. I think that Sean has said the trash cans are off the table. Well, I live on Commonwealth, and people walk their dogs and leave their dog deposits right now on my street in bags. And who's picking that up? If trash is off the table, who's cleaning it? Are you maintaining it in the winter? Are you snow plowing the path? Do you get to use it? I don't understand. There's so many unanswered questions. And for usability of Gates Mills Boulevard, I lived on Commonwealth for 20-some years. I had no idea that street existed until my parents moved there. Residents don't even know about that area. It is not something someone's going to wake up on Ridgeberry and decide, I think I need to go walk the path on Gates Mills Boulevard. You say 241 people. I truly believe if you do get that, that would be wonderful, but I think it's not a good use of funds. I think that other people have talked about the thought of, do we really need to take the money? Do the right thing. I can't imagine that we would be looked at ill for not taking the money at this time. I think that integrity with everything, transparency, not loading meetings with people who give an opinion or talk about something about young residents moving in. I've had conversations with many people here, and it's about getting new young residents in Mayfield Heights. People come where they want to live, what they can afford. We have a beautiful city. Well, let's maintain what we have right now and do the right thing about repairing and beautifying what already exists. Not to mention, there's a lot of wildlife late at night that sits in those medians. I leave that area when I leave my mother's at 1:30, 2:30 in the morning on the weekends. And it's beautiful the way it is. Many people have said that. And we are neighborly, and welcome to the community. And, I truly think that you can walk through Longbridge. If you want a sidewalk, your dog would be very happy there. I'd love to take my dog there with you and meet you, and you'd know my dog by name. I mean, there's plenty of places to go. And it's just not the right time to move forward with this. So I'm just going to ask you to please consider thinking this through, being able to answer all of our questions, and get everyone's opinion. I believe that's a good thing to do too. But when you have the possibility of a toilet or a drive-through median in your own front yard, you're going to feel a little bit differently or stronger about it. Not to mention, when you look on the Mayfield Heights map, Gates Mills are Gates Mills estates, and your taxes and the property people move there for a reason. And it's not that they don't want to be neighborly, but you expect to have a more remote location where you're living. You're not looking to be close suburban. You're in the suburban area, but you have more room. So thank you and good night.
Thank you, Ms. Porath. That is all I have for this evening. Ms. Porath was our last speaker. She was number 26. So at this time, it is 8:39, and I'm going to close the public portion. We will now move on to resolutions, and we'll begin with Resolution 2021-90. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution number 2021-90, a resolution confirming the action of the Planning Commission of the City of Mayfield Heights in declaring the use proposed by Nick Mayer Ford Automotive Service Center on the real property known as 1598 Golden Gate Plaza, Cuyahoga County Permanent Parcel Number 862-31-006, to be a legal prior nonconforming use, and directing the City Director of Building to issue the certificate of occupancy. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balistrea.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend? No?
Yes.
Yes. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Balistrea?
Yes.
Mr. Dijon?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Tracy?
Yes. Approve?
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Mano. Seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. The resolution was approved by planning. Everyone should have received a copy of the letter from the attorneys as well as the letter from Mr. Murphy. This will authorize the city to give a certificate of occupancy to Nick Mayer Ford for the location in Golden Gate Plaza that was previously Conrad's. Is there any discussion, questions? Mr. Balistrea?
Just to add that, as you said, council was copied on all the documentation that was reviewed by the Planning Commission, including the letters from our law director and Mr. Burns, who represents Nick Mayer. This is a legal prior non-conforming use. There was some questions with the use, and it was tabled at our meeting, but the proposed use is similar to what Goodyear and Conrad's used as an automotive facility. The Planning Commission unanimously approved Nick Mayer to occupy the former Conrad's building by deeming it to be a legal prior non-conforming use, and we authorized the building director to issue a certificate of occupancy in accordance with the building code described in 1187.01.
Any other discussion? Mr. Monaco?
This is nothing more than a continuation of an existing non-conforming use. The owner of this property never intended to terminate a lease. It was just a tenant that simply moved out. So given that, I think we should issue an occupancy permit.
Okay. Roll call on the motion to approve?
Mr. Dijon?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea,
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes. This motion has been carried. We'll move on to Resolution 2021-91. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Madam Chair. Get it out here. Resolution number 2021-91, a resolution extending the variances from the codified ordinances granted to Larson Architects on behalf of McDonald's, 6225 Mayfield Road, to increase the number of parking spaces and to install signage above the parapet wall. Cuyahoga County permanent parcel numbers 862-01-001, 862-01-002, 862-01-003, and 862-01-004, and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mr. DeJohn. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mr. Monaco,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea,
Yes.
Mr. DeJean,
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. DeJohn,
Second.
second by Mr. Monaco. All members of council should have received a copy of the letter from Mr. Coyne recapping the past year of plans and approvals for McDonald's. They are requesting that we extend all approvals so that their construction can take place without having to appear before the city once again. The delay was related to COVID-19 pandemic. Comments? Discussion? Seeing none, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Monaco,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea,
Yes.
Mr. DeJean,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes, this motion has carried. We'll move on to Resolution 2021-92. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2021-92, an emergency resolution to accept the material terms of the One Ohio subdivision settlement pursuant to the One Ohio Memorandum of Understanding and consistent with the term of the July 21, 2021 National Opioid Settlement Agreement, ratifying and approving all steps taken by the city and its law director to ensure the city's ability to participate in said agreement and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
I'll move.
Moved by Mr. Monaco, second by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea,
Yes.
Mr. DeJean,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mr. Monaco,
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestrea,
Second?
second by Mrs. Sabetta. We were copied on a letter from Mr. Murphy to all members of council about the second global opioid settlement. It is hard. We have to vote on this if we were in favor of participating in the settlement. If the city does not opt in by January 2, then the funds to the settlement will be lost to the city. Mr. Murphy, would you like to add anything as explanation?
Only answer questions if, I dictated the memo dated December 8th, so if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them, or Mrs. Fagan.
No questions? Okay. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Balestrea,
Yes.
Mr. DeJean,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mr. Monaco,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes, this motion has been carried. We'll move on to Resolution 2021-93. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2021-93, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an amendment to the agreement with Gloss, Pyle, Schomer, Burns, and DeHaven, Inc., DBA GPD Group, to provide professional consulting engineering services consisting of dye testing on public and private property and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Moved by Mr. DeJohn,
Second.
second by Mr. Balistraya. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Balistraya?
Yes.
Mr. DeJean?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Mano,
Second.
second by Mr. DeJean. This is a proposal from the city's engineer group to perform dye testing and mainline testing to the areas near Marnell and Ascot in the city of Mayfield Heights. The approximate cost to the city would be $180,000. If approved, the project will be scheduled to begin December 2021 through April of 2022. Mr. Gerson, do you want to add some information for us, please?
Sure, thank you. Dan Gerson, city engineer. So this proposal is the second part of the Marnell-Ascot area. And the first stage, what we did is we did mainline dye testing in all of the Ascot area and a majority of the Marnell area. And we had results where the sanitary sewers had some defaults, but not enough to warrant where we've been seeing the flooding happen. There's a couple areas that we didn't do mainline dye testing in the first proposal in order to try to keep the cost down, but we are recommending doing that. Those areas now are along Lander Road, along Temple, and along Longwood, and also on, bear with me one second. Mayland. So what we would do is, again, do the mainline dye testing on the public sewers, which basically simulates a storm, and then we look in the sanitary sewers to see where the water is getting in. That's the first phase of it. We would be looking to use AECom as the subconsultant, and then we would manage the project through them. The second part is private property dye testing. We've selected two areas, one in the Ascot area, one in the Marnell area. The Ascot area is approximately 23 homes, 1722 Crestwood to 1790 Crestwood. And then in Marnell, we've selected 43 homes, 1670 Hawthorne to 5808 Circle Drive. So essentially, those two areas are upstream of where we installed flow meters. And what we're looking to do is see where, if there's places on those homes where the stormwater is getting into the sanitary sewer. That's on private property. We would send out a letter to the resident. Again, this is somewhat of a voluntary program. We wouldn't be entering their houses, but we would be entering the property. If you have a resident that objects, we'd ask you to not force them, but ask them to let us get on there because we're trying to solve the problem. Obviously, if there's a resident that absolutely doesn't want us on the property, we would advise you and we would eliminate those from the project. So basically what we're looking to do is try to find out where the water's coming in. We're pretty sure it's coming in the private property on most of these areas. These are two areas that I think would basically yield a lot of results and basically give you the tools to try to move forward on solving the problem. With that, I'll try to answer any questions.
Mr. Balistraya.
Mr. Gerson, maybe just clarify for me. Why not do the private residences first if you suspect that the high probability is coming from the residences, and then not do the Longwood Temple dye testing and possibly save the city $60,000?
Yeah, it's an option, and what we did in the first phase is we looked at the Ascot area where we did the mainline dye testing and the Marnell area that we did the mainline dye testing. We basically looked at public areas first. We eliminated Temple and Longwood, not saying that there's nobody that floods along those streets, but we didn't have a lot of complaints on it. So we thought that the focus should be right along Marnell. Basically, this work that's going along Longwood, Temple, and along Lander is still contributing to the sewer that goes through Marnell. And what we're trying to do is eliminate sources that we can control, we can fix without a lot of resident input. So although we didn't see a lot, there's still a possibility that we could see areas in those 4 streets that could be contributing, that we could get a lot of the water out of there. The private property is really the next step. As you can see, we're doing 60-some homes. It's rather expensive because we're trying to get enough information so that we can give you the tools on it. Unfortunately, that money we spend doesn't fix anything. It gives us the tools to find out what the problem is, and then the next step is how to fix it. So we can do either one of them, but obviously the residents are in a hurry to find out what's going on. You've been to a lot of the meetings.
Right.
There's a lot of education that still has to go on to try to show what's happening, and I think we're on the right track.
But if your gut feeling as the engineer is that this is the primary, maybe source of the problem,
Yeah.
I would do, I wouldn't put the residents off any longer and let's do that portion of the program first.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
test them.
and we could do one or part of it. That's really up to council. The only thing I would say is that if we don't do the rest of the public property, in the minds of a lot of the residents, I think you're still ignoring what they've been telling you is a problem. And if you take that off the plate and you can show them that that's not the problem, I think it gives them a little more understanding of where the problem is. Obviously, if it's not in the public sewers, it's got to be coming from a source, and the private is the next step.
Yeah,
But
I'm not saying ignore that
Sure.
in the Longwood Temple area, but just flip-flop it and let's do the private residences first and
we could, like I said, we could separate this out. We've given you the price for either of them, so we could do one or both, or do one, get the results, and then if you want to go with the next part, do the next part in phase two. I'd be open to conversation on it.
Madam Chair, if I could, just bring up a point. I think you're better off eliminating our portion of it first, because we don't believe this is going to happen, but what if you go to the private residences and it's not there? And then they could say, see, we told you it was there all the time, why didn't you just check yours? Because that's what they've been telling us the whole time, is it's our portion of the sewers. That is the problem. I think you got to eliminate that first. So then we can go to them and show that, look, we did our due diligence and now we need to come onto your property.
Well, I'm just going by what the city engineer's gut feeling is, that that's primarily the source of the problem, and we could tackle that without spending additional monies
Yeah,
and find out that's the root of the problem and problem solved.
Yeah, I think the problem you have is that, keep in mind, so we're only testing 60 homes out of probably 400 or 500 homes. And so we're looking for problems that we're probably going to find in a lot of the other homes. Not all of them, but a lot of the other ones. Eliminating the public portion that will finish all the public portion that we have in there, and then we can definitively say, no, it's not. The other option is you may find a lot in those areas just because we haven't tested them. So you really got to do both. I would say if you wanted to do one or the other, I would suggest you start with the mainline dye testing in the rest of the public areas, close that out, and then I would start with either the Ascot or the Marnell area. One of the things that we could do is in the Marnell area, we have 43 homes. That was basically everything from that flow meter we put in upstream. We could start at that flow meter and go 20 homes and see what kind of results we get. And if we're finding enough results, we can say, hey, the next 20 are most likely going to be like that. Again, the dye testing of the private property is really for tools, so we can point to it and say, okay, of the 20 or 30 homes we did, these are the results we have, and this is how the water is getting into that sanitary sewer. But
Madam Chair, if I could follow up.
Mr. Balistreo?
What's the time frame do you anticipate then, Dan? Would these folks get dye tested during the
Yep.
during the
So-
winter months, or would we have to now postpone until spring?
Yeah, it really depends on the weather. Last week, I would say it's probably going to be postponed. This week, we've got 50, 60-degree weather. Generally speaking, we're not going to be doing private property dye testing when it's snowing and the gutters are freezing up, or if it's freezing to a point where we're trying to put water in the
I
gutters.
understand.
I put a timeline starting December 21st, April 2022 being done with the work. Again, that's weather dependent. If we have a real bad winter, then no. But if we have a light winter, there's a lot of work we can get done, and we can do, schedule 20 homes and get that done in 4 or 5 days, and then go to the next 20 homes. Or in the mainline dye testing, it's a little less restrictive on just cold, but again, you don't want it freezing so that you're trying to introduce water to the streets.
Both portions could be done in that time frame. is what
We
you're saying.
we believe so, yeah. Again, it's dependent on weather. Unfortunately, starting in December is tough, but obviously want to get some answers. There was one other thing, and I'll just throw that out there. I did receive, I know we talked about maybe trying to do this as a volunteer program. It's very difficult to do it as a voluntary program. However, I did receive a resident that asked, say, I'd like to volunteer for it. What I'd like to do is if we have volunteers, we would maybe do that, maybe through the county or maybe add it, but it wouldn't be as a, just to kind of clear their house off if they request it, so. But we could look at that too.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Mr. Monaco?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. 3 questions. One is, what's included in the price? Is the storm and sanitary, are they doing both or just one or the other?
In which part, I'm sorry, in the mainline dye testing? or-
And the homeowner property?
So what they would be doing is they're basically putting water in any of the they're gonna test every downspout, any yard drain they have, and they're looking in the sanitary sewer for if it's coming in the sanitary lateral. If they find locations where the downspout is either plugged or if they see obvious spots where the downspout's broken, they would document that. And then they would show where water's coming in and give you an estimation of the gallons per minute and try to give you a recommendation on what the repair costs would be. So that's on the private property side of it.
So in that case, the homeowner needs to do repair on the storm and sanitary, because you have to have a hole in the storm and the sanitary for the water to leak from one into the other.
That's correct. You may have both of them, correct, yes. You may simply find that on one house, it's not getting to the sanitary, but all their downspouts are plugged up with roots and whatnot, so it's kind of a maintenance thing also.
But you're only testing the storm right now, is that correct?
Yeah, we're basically trying to see if there's stormwater, clean water, however it gets in there, whether it's through downspouts,
Okay.
broken pipes, into the sanitary, correct.
Second question is, how many quotes have we got for this? Or we just going to this company?
Yeah, we have one quote. We've worked with AECom before. They've done most of the work. I can get another quote if you'd like, and that would be, I can get you that, and that would be the italics numbers that are all quoted, so we can
Yeah, I
get you
think
another one.
we
for that.
should get more than one quote. And then, final comment is, have you checked with the county sewer department, see if they're willing to do it?
Yeah, so the county sewer could do it. We've had them done in the past. They do good work. I can tell you that they're generally overwhelmed, and they're not going to give you the detail that we're looking for.
Actually, I just called them today, and they said that they're willing to do it.
Well, I can tell you I've used them in the past, and they do good work, but I would not recommend them on this project for that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or discussion? I'm just happy to see that we're finally going to do something to negate the water issue. These people have been complaining for almost 7 years since we had our last engineer. So it's about time we have a pilot program, and it's about time that we start doing something for the residents over there. They've suffered enough and spent enough money, for sure.
I would agree.
Thank you,
Madam
Mr. Gerson.
President.
Oh, Mr. DeJohn.
Yeah, Mr. Monaco, yeah, AECom has an expert on their staff. He came and spoke with us twice on the Public Works and Service Committee. So I have a lot of faith in them that they're going to find out what the problem is and what it'll take to repair it. So I really don't want to slow down this project. I want to really get it going, so, yeah.
I'm sorry I was not involved from the beginning.
Yeah, no, you know,
Just
you
that-
weren't here, so that's why I wanted to add
Yeah.
that.
One follow-up to this is, once that the homeowner knows that he has a problem in the storm or the sanitary, then he needs to make the repair. And I tell you, I had this experience at University Heights. Those residents are not going to be very happy that they have to have thousands of dollars worth of repair on their property. So just a food for thought. And then you can get a contractor to possibly give us a price and do all the repairs there, so that they would get a better price for all the residents. Maybe.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yeah, so that's the next step of the program, where we'll decide how we're going to handle the results from the study.
Thank you.
And how we're going to take care of that and what the homeowner's going to be responsible for. So.
And I believe at the last Public Works Committee, we did mention that it could be a cost to the resident. I mean, that was, shared with the residents who were in the audience at that time. So they may be well aware that it could be their problem. Mr. DeJohn.
But not the pilot program. So,
Not
yeah.
the pilot
Yeah, so
program.
I just wanted to make sure.
Correct, not the pilot program.
Yeah, so that's volunteer, we will be paying for that.
Okay, seeing nothing else, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJean?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes?
Mr. Balestrea? Mrs. Teresi?
Yes, this motion has been carried. We will now move on to Resolution, excuse me, 2021-94. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution number 2021-94, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an amendment to the agreement with Gloss Pile, Schomer, Burns, and DeHaven, Inc., DBA GPT Group, to provide additional professional consulting engineering services in connection with the design and construction of the Gates Mills Boulevard Multipurpose Trail Connector Project and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano,
Madam Chair, I'd like the motion to place on second read. So we have a full council present when we take this vote on this particular subject.
I second. Also,
So,
I would
yeah.
like to add that Mr. Monaco does have, and has expressed, along with the residents, concern with the monies, and we could have time to look at that.
So it would be first reading, because
Yes.
it's never been on
First reading.
first reading. So do I have a motion to place 2021-94 on first reading?
You do.
It is. So we need a,
Actually, there's a motion to suspend the rules, so if that could be retracted, it would be on first reading. Okay. Is there a second?
did we have a second to suspend the rules? I would second. Well, roll call on the
Now you
motion
do a
to
roll call
suspend. On the motion to suspend, Karen.
Did we have a second?
Yes, I
Oh,
seconded.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
Yes.
that. I missed that. I
Yeah.
apologize.
That's okay. Me.
Yeah.
Mr. Mano?
No.
Mr. Monaco?
No.
Mrs. Sabetta?
No.
Mr. Balestrea?
No.
Mr. DeJean?
No.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yeah. I should have said yes.
No,
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay, the motion fails, so it's on first reading.
it is on first reading.
Right.
That's really weird.
Add 2090.
Okay, so now, this is the new one.
At this point, it would be appropriate to do a motion to add 2021-94 to the agenda.
Do I have a motion to add Resolution 2021-95 to the,
Sorry.
95,
my bad.
moved by Mr. Balestrea, seconded by Mr. DeJohn. Roll call on the motion to add Resolution 2021-95 to our agenda.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea?
Yes.
Mr. DeJean?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder? I'm sorry, she's not here. Mrs. Teresi?
Yes. Okay. Is there a motion to suspend? Mr. Murphy, you're going to read it.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2021-95, a resolution authorizing the mayor of the city of Mayfield Heights to enter into an agreement with University Hospitals Health System, Inc., and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Moved by Mr. DeJohn.
Second.
Second by Mr. Balestrea. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea?
Yes.
Mr. DeJean?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestrea, second by Mr. Monaco. Discussion. Mr. Murphy, Mayor?
Mayor.
Since we just got this evening when we sat down, and no one's had the
I
opportunity
will
to read
ask
it.
Mrs. Augustine to come up if you want to kind of explain what the iSystoc webpage is all about.
We employ the services of Lake Health for drug screening for pre-employment and other reasons, and they are merging with university hospitals, which gives us more locations and access to a portal so that we can get immediate, or quicker, I shouldn't say immediate, quicker results on the drug screen information that we need. So they wanted us to sign this agreement, so we're bringing it to you.
There's no cost associated with it?
Yeah, is there a cost associated with this?
There's no cost associated with this, but we do pay per drug screen.
And what do we pay per drug screen?
We pay, hold on, I think I have the numbers. We pay $41 for non-DOT and $68 for DOT drug screens.
Do you want to explain each one of those?
Sure, Department of Transportation drug screens are for people who have CDL licenses. So if we're hiring somebody like that, it's federally regulated. The non-DOT drug screen is for safety-sensitive employees that we hire here, most of our full-time employees, and part-time employees such as lifeguards and camp counselors.
How often do we drug screen?
So anytime we hire, reasonable suspicion, after accidents, random drug testing for CDL license holders.
Mr. DeJohn?
How did you pick university hospitals or Lake Health Systems?
Well, we use both Cleveland Clinic and Lake Health for some of the drug testing and some of the pension physicals that we have for police and fire. And mostly those are just whoever can get us in the quickest. So we utilize both. But Lake Health is a member of our Lake County Safety Council, and we work with them closely on that, so they offered their services.
Any other comments or discussion? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Monaco? Yes. Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea?
Yes.
Mr. DeJean?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes. This resolution has been approved. We'll now move to ordinances, and we'll move to ordinance 2021-36. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance number 2021-36, an ordinance making appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Mayfield Heights, State of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31, 2022, and declaring an emergency. Second reading.
Do I have a roll call on the motion to suspend?
Move.
Moved by Mr. DeJohn,
Second.
second by Mr. Balestrea. Roll call on the motion to
Mrs.
approve. I'm sorry, we're both talking.
I'm sorry.
Okay, one at a time. Mr. Murphy, what were you going to say?
Motion to suspend, roll call.
I was going to say that.
Well, should
Roll-
we can roll call?
Yes,
Okay.
let's do
Mrs.
that.
Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea?
Yes.
Mr. DeJean?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestrea, seconded by Mr. DeJohn. The Finance Committee met to discuss the 2022 budget. I hope that council has had the time to get their question answered by Mrs. Fagan. Are there any comments, Mr. Balestrea, that you would like to add?
Most of council, I think, was present at the committee meeting, minus one or two members, and we bombarded Mrs. Fagan ad nauseum with questions, which I think she answered appropriately. It was a rather lengthy meeting of about 3 hours. We picked apart the budget, and I think she did an excellent job with her and her team. And we recommend from the committee for the council to approve the 2022 budget.
I agree, and thank you, Mrs. Fagan, for all of the information that you provide to us throughout the year. And it was a very long meeting. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Balestrea?
Yes.
Mr. DeJean?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes. This motion has been passed. We'll now move on to ordinance number 2021-37. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance 2021-37, an ordinance amending the original appropriations ordinance number 2020-31 for the current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Mayfield Heights, Ohio, for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2021, as previously amended by ordinance number 2021-12 and 2021-25, specifically the transfer and supplemental appropriations of funds in various accounts and declaring an emergency. Second reading.
I agree. Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Mr. Balestrella, seconded by Mr. DeJohn. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Balestrella?
Yes.
Mr. DeJean?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Moved by Mr. Monaco,
Second?
seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. The ordinance amends the original appropriations from prior ordinances, and it moves funds to and from the general fund to the appropriate funds that it needs to go to for payment. Mrs. Fagan, is there anything you would like to add?
I think you summed it up very well. There was a legend provided to council that summarized all the changes. Hopefully that answered any questions.
Thank you. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJean?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes,
Mr. Balestrella?
Yes.
this motion this motion has passed. We will now move on to motions, and we'll have motion A, Mr. Murphy.
Motion to authorize the sale of vehicles and equipment through Gov Deals as follows. A 2010 Ford Expedition, VIN number 1FMJU1G51AEA87990, mileage of 86,531. A 2008 Ford Explorer, VIN number 1FMEU73E48UB09233, mileage 51,120. A 2003 Ford Ranger, VIN number 1FTZR45EX3TA18985, mileage 89,895. Two 1985 Bombardiers sidewalk snow removal machines, a 1981 Elgin street sweeper, and a 1972 Ford tractor.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. DeJohn,
Second?
second by Mrs. Sabetta. Discussion? Mr. Balestrella?
Just a question for the mayor. Mayor, is there any inkling to get another Bombardier? Or we have any replacements for that? I didn't remember seeing that.
Yeah. We have ability to clean the sidewalks, yes,
Okay.
definitely.
I don't remember seeing that. That's why I said that as a
Shovels.
request.
Mr. Mano, you had your hand up?
He answered my question.
Okay.
I was concerned about replacing the Bombardier.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Balestrella?
Yes.
Mr. DeJean?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes, this motion has been carried. We'll move on to new business or comments from council. Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to sponsor legislation to opt out of House Bill 172 that was signed into law that will allow private citizens to purchase and discharge commercial-grade fireworks on certain holidays. There are provisions in the state law that permits communities to opt out of its provisions, and I would like to opt out. So if Mr. Murphy can write that legislation. As we all know, fireworks are dangerous to people, dangerous to housing and building structures, and a big irritant to the noise to people as well as many animals. So, And I'd also like to sponsor legislation.
If I could jump in there just real quick. It's on that subject. Several members of council have expressed the same opinion, so I'm looking at it because we already have a fireworks ordinance, and I want to make sure that the new state law dovetails with the ordinance we have. But the ultimate objective is to not permit fireworks anywhere in the city at any time for any holiday. And the state law gives you the opportunity to opt in on some and opt out on others. So I want to make sure it's right. It's not effective till July 1st.
Correct.
So
but
we've got time.
But there is provisions to opt out, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, and then the other legislation I'd like to sponsor is to make it illegal for the city to charge a property owner to collect garbage that is uncontained and on a tree lawn several days before trash collection. I had a resident complaint from Belrose that somebody put trash, maybe they were moving, but they lined the tree lawn with uncontained trash on Sunday, and I believe their trash collection is not till Thursday, so it's out there that whole time. So we need to have some type of means to be able to collect that trash. Obviously, if we had to call in Kimball to do a special collection, it would cost us, and I want to be able to charge the homeowner, the resident, that trash pickup for when they do that.
Okay, I'll take a look at that. I know we already have an ordinance on the books
Yeah.
regarding when you can put trash out, and so we would, then you'd look to be able to charge them for whatever cost it would be to collect trash on a non-trash day.
Correct, and when it's the whole tree lawn piled high, uncontained, blowing around, it's a definite nuisance and a disturbance to the rest of the neighborhood.
Okay, I'll prepare something and circulate it.
Mr. Monaco.
Mr. DeJohn, I believe we have something in the books that prohibits that, and if it's done, those offenders could be cited.
Yeah.
The city would not get any money directly, other than through the court, but you could actually cite them for putting garbage out too early or leaving the garbage cans out too late.
Correct, I do understand we have that ordinance.
Okay.
What we don't have is the means to charge them if we have to go out and clean it up before trash day. And in this instance, we may need to do that. From what I'm hearing, it's a very bad situation. Somebody moved and just loaded the tree lawn with a bunch of trash. Thanks.
Are we all set? Thank you, Mr. DeJohn. Anything else or any other comments from council?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you. So I just want to take a moment and thank the residents and anyone who isn't a resident also, everyone who did this survey, for talking and showing your voice, your passion for or against the trail. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestrea,
Second.
second by Mrs. Sabetta. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone. Thank you, residents, for coming tonight and having your voices heard. We are now adjourned.